some of you were here last night, or not here, but in Burgaw last night, and some of you were not. So the kind of format for tonight is I will give a short presentation on the emergency services merger. This is really just based on the frequently asked questions that we have been getting. And then after that, we will have questions and answers. You don't have to sign up to be able to ask a question, and we're not gonna have a time frame on that. But we will get to that at the end. Hopefully the presentation will answer a lot of your questions. So, what I do intend to cover is what emergency services looks like now, what a merger is, how we got here to go through this merger, what this process is looking like, how this is going to affect first responders, and what does this mean for you as the taxpayers. So right now, emergency services includes a lot of things. It's fire and EMS, law enforcement, and there's also 911, emergency management, fire marshal's office. And these are all funded in different ways. So 911, emergency management, the fire marshal's office, these are county functions, and they come out of the county general fund. We have law enforcement, we have our sheriff's office, that is a county function. Then we, of course, have our municipal police departments, Burgaw, Surf City, Topsail Beach, North Carolina Highway Patrol. We have EMS, which is provided by Pender EMS and Fire, also Union Rescue. Union Rescue operates one station in the Willard area, and Pender EMS and Fire operates the other EMS stations in the county. For fire, we have our municipal departments, so Burgaw, Atkinson, Surf City, Topsail Beach. We have our nonprofit departments, so those are Pender EMS and Fire, Maple Hill, Rocky Point, and Pender Lee, and then we have North Carolina Forestry also that provides services in the county. So our fire services are funded through the fire tax. There's a different tax rate in each district. And then EMS also has a flat tax throughout the county. Over the years, there's also been general fund supplements that come from our annual budget. So a merger is when two or more organizations agree to go forward with a shared vision, create a new organization. So in this case, the merger that we are talking about is between Pender County, Pender EMS and Fire, Pender Lee Fire, and Maple Hill Fire. So a lot of people have asked how we got here. A merger has been discussed for many years, as early as 2013. Some say even earlier. It was definitely discussed again in 2019. And there's a lot of reasons that this has been discussed. But back when the county asked Pender EMS to absorb some of the fire departments in 2013. So there's been a transition from volunteer to paid or career staffing over many, many years, not necessarily just in Pender County, but statewide and nationwide. And that's due to a lot of different reasons. People move further away from home. People work away from home, they work in other counties. Employers are less likely to allow people to leave for fire calls during the day, especially during work hours. So that's led to a need to have full-time paid staff coverage in a lot of departments. And again, I'm not talking just about Pender County. This is statewide and nationwide. There's also a lot of certifications and specialties, hazmat, heavy rescue, confined space, that require extensive training. Just to be a volunteer firefighter requires a lot of training, a lot of hours, and then all of those extra certifications require more time. And it can be very difficult for a lot of departments to provide that level of service because people expect the same service in traditionally rural areas as they get in urban areas with all of these specialties. So with all of those extra specialties, with all of the extra certifications, with paid staff, over time, fire and EMS tax does not cover services in Pender County. So a lot of departments have been getting supplements in the annual general fund budget since 2018. Since 2018, the general fund has been supplementing all of the departments. So the fire tax and the EMS tax have not been covering all of the emergency services in the county. And so this model is not sustainable financially, and it's maybe not the most efficient way to fund these operations. So this conversation came back up in 2025. So looking at the process of the merger, who is involved in making decisions. So it's not just county staff, it is staff from each agency. So we have a committee that involves county staff, it involves staff from Pender EMS and Fire, from Maple Hill, and from Pender Lee. North Carolina Fire Chief Consulting has been helping to guide our conversations. They've been involved in a couple of mergers throughout the years. And then, of course, the boards for each department have the final approving authority for any final legal documentation. So that process, we approved the Memorandum of Understanding in September at I believe our September 2nd board meeting. And the committee that I mentioned is working on our task list items and our work groups. And those task lists include all of those categories, the HR, finance, IT, facilities and fleet, operations. There's a lot of items. There's a lot of tabs in that task list. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and there's a lot of action items under each tab. So, when you look at, this is a very complex process. So when you're looking at HR, you're looking at the personnel, the benefits, the payroll. With finance, you're looking at all the insurance, deeds, titles, leases. With IT, there's a lot of access, timekeeping software, those kinds of things. Obviously, there's a lot of equipment and apparatus that require replacement schedules and regular maintenance. And then, of course, our fire operations, EMS operations, special operations, and our volunteers all are going to have different work groups. Some of those work groups have started meeting, some of them have not yet. And all of this is working towards a final merger agreement. I have a timeline, I believe, on the next slide. But working towards that final merger agreement where July 1 of 2026, we are looking at the full-time paid staff becoming county staff and transferring the assets over to be able to provide services under operation of the county. And then the last step, of course, of the process is implementation. So all of the things don't end on July 1st. We'll need a long-range plan, whether you want to call it a strategic plan, a business plan, that includes station, staffing, training, all of those types of things, and ongoing meetings between all of the departments, all of the organizations, and all the disciplines to make sure that services are being provided to all the county residents. So just touching on the timeline for a minute. Right now we're doing our public town hall meetings. We're working on all of those task list items that I covered. We're going to have some staff town hall meetings in November and December, and those would be for the paid staff that would be coming from Pender EMS and Fire, so that staff, just like tonight, you guys will have opportunities to ask questions, so that staff will be able to ask questions about how this affects them. In the spring, we'd be looking at finalizing that merger agreement, holding some more public town hall meetings so that we can talk about all of the final details that are in that merger agreement. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the staff will become county staff and all of the assets will transfer over so we can provide service in July. And then after that, we're going to be working on all of those post-merger items. So we have a lot of questions about how this affects first responders, both staff and volunteers. So I'll talk about the staff first. So here's listed Pender EMS and Fire staff, and because that's where our only full-time paid career staff are in these departments. So those staff will become county employees. They will have competitive pay. We're working on pay scales right now. The benefits, the same county benefits that all of our county employees get. We're looking at providing longevity for the years of service to Pender County, because if you've been providing service in Pender County as a first responder for the last 20 years, that's in service to Pender County. There are limitations to what we can do with the local government retirement system, but we are looking at lots of different ways to be able to reward longevity and to provide competitive pay and benefits. As far as our volunteers go, we want to keep all of our qualified volunteers, both fire and EMS. Volunteers are very important in emergency services, for tanker task forces, for search and rescue, for providing that second engine coming out. The volunteers are very important. And what we're working on is determining the incentives or the roles of associations, or a lot of departments do different things for incentives for their volunteers, and we want to make sure that all the volunteers in the county are doing the same thing. So some departments might pay for retirement dues, or some might pay for association dues, and we just need to figure out what that looks like for all of our volunteers. But we do want to keep all of our qualified volunteers on both fire and EMS. So how does this affect you? So there's a lot of different pieces to this. One of the questions that we have been getting is, will my ISO rating change? So the ISO rating is your insurance rating. It's so your fire department can affect portions of your homeowner's insurance, and that depends on how far from a station you are, what the staffing looks like at that station, and a lot of other pieces involving training and equipment. So we have met with the North Carolina Office of the State Fire Marshal, who does the ISO inspections. Because we are not changing the service delivery model, we're not closing stations, we're not reducing staffing, we're not reducing equipment, they do not expect any significant changes in ISO. They said there's a good chance it doesn't change at all, but any changes would be very small. Another question we've been getting is, will there still be a fire truck or ambulance at the station near me? So if you have a station across the street from your house and there's a fire truck that leaves there every day, there's still going to be a fire station there. There's still going to be a fire truck leaving that station every day. Same thing if there's an EMS station across the street from you. We're not changing where stations are located or where apparatus are leaving stations. Some people have asked, what will service delivery look like post-merger? I kind of explained how we have lots of different departments providing services right now. So there's a lot of different structures that you can use. We are looking at doing an emergency services department. So that would be one department under one director that includes fire, EMS, emergency management, and then logistics and field communications to support all of them. And there's, as I said, there's different structures to do this, but this means that all of those departments report to one person that works for the county that has a background in public safety and emergency services. So information being shared moving forward, there's been a lot of questions around this, around the merger. There's been a lot of miscommunication or misunderstanding of processes. And so moving forward, how information will be shared, I have been providing updates at various board meetings. Those will continue. I'm not going to provide an update at every single board meeting and bore everyone. But when we have process updates to share, we will do that. We also have a web page. There's a web page on our county website under the government tab. There's a emergency services tab. There's also a strategic plan tab. And there are frequently asked questions there, and I will be updating those after these town hall meetings with some of the additional questions that we've gotten. And so we will provide updates there, and then any big changes, we'll update social media, the news outlets, and those as well. So one of the most common questions that we've been getting is, what is this going to cost, or are my property taxes going to go up? Because that's an important question, obviously, to everyone that lives in the county. I realize that most of you cannot probably read this font behind me, but we have another summary slide after this one. So looking at the costs, the biggest cost of this merger is the salary and benefits for staff. And that is due to, one, trying to make sure that the staff salaries are competitive in our region and also align with our current pay and classification plan. And also we would like to address any compressions, any salary compression and those things. But the biggest piece of this is the increase in retirement. And again, there's another spreadsheet and a couple of slides that Ms. Blue will cover more in depth. But the largest piece of that is about $1.5 million of increase in the retirement and benefits per year because of the amount that the county contributes to the local government retirement system. When we look at our debts and liabilities, the total debt assumed is about $14.5 million, but this is already paid in the annual budget every year. So this number is not adding any additional debt service because, again, that's a number that's already getting paid every year during our annual budget. With asset costs, there's a lot of IT network equipment that would need to be added to some of the stations. The number here is $95,000. However, that is if every single station had to have all of the network equipment replaced. So it's likely that number is actually lower. But again, this cost is based on if every single piece of network equipment has to be replaced. There's also network software licensing, connectivity, timekeeping software costs that are recurring every year. That's about $250,000. Again, some of that will be offset by the departments will not be having to pay some of those licensing costs for software. As far as operational costs go, fire, EMS, special operations, training, all of these things are already paid for in the annual budget. So there's no increase in the annual budget for operational costs because we are already paying for all of those things through all of our departments. There are some upfront legal costs. The North Carolina Fire Chief Consulting, their fee as they guide us through this process, and then also transferring all the deeds and titles over because there is a lot of equipment and a lot of assets involved in this merger. And then when we look at capital, there is a new fleet garage. So the county needed a new fleet garage that was identified as we were working through a facilities master plan. It's outdated. We can't fit a lot of our regular fleet vehicles in that garage. Pender EMS and Fire also needed a new fleet garage because the building that they are using is not adequate for their needs. And the schools also needs a new fleet garage because it's not adequate to work on buses. So as opposed to having 3 separate capital expenditures, we're looking at building one fleet garage, which should reduce some of those costs. So looking at the summary of that, the additional recurring costs per year would be about $1.8 million in personnel and about $250,000 for the asset costs. Those are those IT things. So a little bit over $2 million in additional funding in the annual budget every year. As far as the one-time costs, we'd be looking at about $195,000 one-time costs and then an estimated $15 million for the fleet garage that again is already needed by all 3 organizations. So I am going to let Ms. Blue, our interim county manager and finance director, cover the next 3 slides, which covers some of the costs a little bit more in depth and talks about the funding structure, and then we will get to the questions and answers section.
Thank you, Sarah. My spreadsheets are a little less fun than Sarah's, so bear with me. I did this last night without spreadsheets in front of me, or without spreadsheets on the screen, and thought it might be easier if I could follow along. But what this shows is the assets and the debt that we're talking about here. What I want to point out is that the accrued vacation debt is a debt that will be on our balance sheet, but it's not a debt service related debt. There's no debt service related to that. It's related to payroll. The additional financing leases and long-term debt, most of those are, they say long-term because that means longer than a year, but most of them are less than 10 years and smaller dollar amounts that could potentially be paid off. There are a few for stations that would be taken over at that point. And then the net of that is almost $1 million. You can see the $986,000. The other thing was last night we got a question about our fund balance percentage, and I thought it was a great question, so I decided to include that here. This is our fund balance percentage from our 2024 audit, which is the most recent available. What I want to point out here is we've used the 2026 budgeted number, so it's further along and a much more conservative estimate of what this would do to our percentage, because our fund balance will increase and our budgeted expenditures. These expenditures are not new expenditures. This is just moving the expenditures from the EMS and fire funds into our general fund. So that percentage would end up at 44.5, which is still 2.23 times our current policy rate. So if you want to go to the next slide. This is a spreadsheet that you probably can't read the numbers of, but I just want to kind of walk through how we came up with some of the numbers in those first spreadsheets. This shows, by division of employee and then the before and after, and you can see towards the bottom left here where it says taxes and retirement, we've calculated some of the generic benefits. We can't calculate everything for everybody because we don't know what they would all choose to take and waive. But we've done our best effort here, and this is with the information that we have. We've had this this is updated from the first time that we presented this. And then you can see over to the right, this would be kind of the average individual impact for each employee. And you can see the average increase. And then down at the bottom, you can see the difference between the blue line, which is what a family plan would cost somebody with Pender Mesa Fire and Pender County now versus an employee-only plan. I basically did the lowest and the highest so you could kind of see the extremes. And then the additional retirement nets out to about 11%, and that's about 7,500. I have copies of it. Well, I have a copy of it. I can make copies, but I will put this on our website where Sarah's sharing things for the public. Okay, I can see if I can find a copy machine, or I can send it to you. Either way. I'll go to the next one. Okay, this one's going to be a little difficult to see too, but it's at least color coded, so I can point out colors. All of these spreadsheets, to be clear, are much bigger than this. This is hidden versions and they're hidden columns and stuff like that, so that I could get the information on the screen. But one thing I want to point out here is the total county tax rate down in the bottom corner here. You can see the total county tax rate, the EMS rate, and the average fire rate, and they all add up to 92.38% or cents. The individual fire tax rates are listed in that second column there, the value of a penny for each district. And then in the green column, it lists what that generates for each district. So you can see the revenue that is supposed to fund the district is in that green column. Then what you see in the orange column is how much the general fund contributes to each department. And if you look down at the bottom, you can see that the fire tax in total generates a little over $7 million, and the general fund actually contributes about $7.5 million. So the general fund, your county tax rate is contributing 7.5 cents, which is generating more than what the entire fire tax is generating right now, which is part of the reason this conversation comes up so often. During budget every year, we have to look at these numbers, and when that general fund number grows, it's hard for anything to be allocated appropriately when we're using so much of our general fund to fund something that should be funded by fire tax. So that's how this comes up so often. And you know, our budget meetings are public meetings, but it's difficult to have some of those conversations in a regular board meeting. So I just wanted to put this here so that everybody can understand that we're not just talking about fire tax dollars, we're talking about general fund tax dollars as well. And I believe that concludes what I was going to say. I will say that, you know, we're still working through what the best rate structure is for that. We'll have better answers after, because, you know, I don't know how many people know, but we're going through a reval currently, and that will be effective January 1st, 2026, which is going to inherently change tax values and the tax rate. So there will be a very complicated, a lot of math that we'll have to do to determine what that revenue neutral rate looks like and what the tax rate looks like going forward. So I just kind of wanted to paint that picture a little bit so that we're clear about which dollars we're talking about. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. I love a good spreadsheet, so I'm happy to show you my whole spreadsheet and walk you all the way through it if you'd like me to. I won't bore you with that now, but I certainly appreciate your patience and your being here tonight.
Okay, so we are going to get to everyone's favorite part, is asking questions. We didn't ask anybody to sign up to ask questions. We're not going to set a timer, but we do ask that you please be respectful with your questions and also be respectful of everyone else's time so that everyone has a chance to ask questions to address or to mention their concerns. We're going to do our best to answer all of your questions. We are still working through this process, so we may not have every single answer right here tonight, but I do plan to, any information that we might not have right in front of us tonight, but that we can go ahead and answer, we can go ahead and I will update that on the webpage that I mentioned. And then we will go ahead and get started. Miss Brandy Cobb, our communications director, was going to go around with a microphone. I don't know where she's hiding it. There she is. So she will come around with a microphone. We did have trouble. We are live streaming, and we do want everyone at home to be able to hear the questions. A lot of people said they couldn't hear some of the questions last night. So if you have a question, please wave Brandy down, and we will start taking questions.
Thank you. I actually have a lot of questions, but I'll try to cut it short. You mentioned the new county maintenance garage, and it was lightly brought up last night that back in 23, or actually 22, we had a school bond issue that was issued for the specific purpose of building 2 new schools over on the east side, to renovate Topsail Middle, to add to Rocky Point Elementary, to rebuild a cafeteria at Burgall Middle, and to construct a new central and maintenance building. I understand from last night that that money was used. I've checked into it. Was any of these other projects other than the school done? And where did the money go? That's a big question. I know the new cafeteria has not been built in Burgall.
To answer your question, the $178 million school bond was approved by the voters. We have issued 144 of it to build the K-8 school that we're currently building. There is still the remainder that is available for additional projects. The next project on the list is, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but the next project on the list is to renovate Topsail Middle into a 9th grade academy for Topsail High School. And while the K-8 school ended up costing more than what anybody could have projected when we started the bond process, so what we end up with is less money left over to do all of the other projects. So we're prioritizing classroom projects first, and funding permitted, the garage may or may not make that cut. It's not prioritized above school classrooms.
Okay, so what you're saying is when they sold this school bond issue and announced it, advertised it to the people who were voting for it, they're not going to do what the people voted for? Is that what we're saying? And also, is it the fact that there's a big overrun on the K-12 school over there because you've added more classrooms since the bond issue? Is that a problem?
So what we do is we issue the bonds and we carry the debt and we fund the project from the bonds. As far as what gets funded and what order that happens in and how big the school is, those are school board decisions. And we do our part to fund them accordingly.
Okay. My other question is this July 1 deadline. Who actually set that deadline?
The board did that in their resolution.
This is going to get a little pointed, but is that possibly, I know it's not going to be a complete done deal even if it's initiated on July 1. As was said, there's going to be a lot of other things that will have to be done afterwards. But is that in any way politically motivated because several of the commissioners are facing an election 3 months after that deadline? Most everywhere else does it in 5 to 10 years.
I don't think that was addressed to the commission then.
I'm not sure I can answer that question for you.
Who do you want to ask?
I would like to have an answer. I would like to have an answer from the commissioners. I don't care which one.
I can't answer it because I didn't vote for that deadline.
All right, let me correct. I would like it an answer from one of the three that did vote for it.
The July 1st deadline coincides with the new budget year, and that's the reason. Politics has nothing to do with it and never has for the past 20 years of the discussion of fire and EMS.
We have a new budget deadline every year
July 1. Yeah.
on July 1.
In that vein, the people you got to advise you about this said that this would be probably best at least a 3 to 5 year time frame. Why have you rushed it to make it a 1 year time frame? What reason do you have behind that?
I think it can be done in 18 months. It's not 1 year. I think it's been talked about for 20 years. It's time to do it.
Well, it's been talked about, and back in, I think it was 2013 maybe, that was when you decided to stay with the, to go with the nonprofit EMS, because the advisors said that it would save money, but the way to save money would be to cut stations and personnel. And so for that reason, you guys, wasn't you guys, but the people at the time, went with the nonprofit. Now, yes, it's been talked about all this time, but all of a sudden, out of the blue, we had a commissioners meeting where Mr. Springer said, hey, let's do this thing, let's do it now. Did you have a meeting with the EMS board before you made that motion and that decision?
No,
And why not?
I didn't feel the need.
And why not?
First off, in 2013, I wasn't on the board. So I
Correct.
couldn't. I was a career firefighter in 2013.
Okay.
So,
But-
I think staff has worked really hard in this process, and I think it's going to benefit the men and women of fire and EMS, and I think it's the way to go, and I think it's going to work out great for them and their families.
But the question was, why didn't you have the meeting with the fire and EMS board before you guys just took it over or decided to take it over?
Why didn't they meet with the union? I don't know.
That didn't answer my question.
Yeah, well, that's the answer I give you, ma'am.
Sad.
Sarah, how many times do you think we've spoken in the past 6 to 8 months about this merger and the fact that Maple Hill should be exempt from the merger?
We've talked multiple times.
Have we signed an MOU with the county
No,
stating?
Maple Hill has not signed it yet.
The commissioners seem to believe that all parties are in agreement here, and we're not. We haven't been from the get-go. We were told prior to January meeting that no volunteer fire departments would be affected. And then January meeting, bam, here we are, being taken over. We've got a lot of issues with this merger and the way that it's gone about. We don't have a problem with the merger with Pender EMS and Fire. The problem comes in with the Maple Hill Volunteer Fire Department side of it. I've talked in front of the commissioners before. On average, we get $30,000 to $40,000 a year grant money. That's going to be gone. We maintain all of the equipment that the paid people drive. All of those fire trucks belong to the Maple Hill Volunteer Fire Department. We never see a dime of that $650,000. It all went straight from the county to Pender EMS and Fire to supply that manpower. That's all that money went for. We've been operating off of $100,000 $100,000 a year budget from 2011 to 2023. We're up now $138,000. And we've been able to maintain all the equipment and all the assets for all of the emergencies in Maple Hill. We're way far out. At best, 20 minutes from EMS transport unit. At best, 20 minutes from Burgaw Fire Department. We cooperate with Duplin, Onslow for our automatic aid. That's where our points for our ISO comes from. We keep talking about volunteers and how we're going to take care of our volunteers. What guarantees that you're going to have any volunteers left in Maple Hill when you close us down? How is that going to affect ISO? How is that going to affect all them pretty figures y'all had up there? These are the questions that are unanswered in the MOU meetings, because nobody knows. Why ruin a good thing that has been operating for 8 years as a combination paid and volunteer fire department, costing the taxpayers the least amount of money that it can cost them to have that level of service? What sense does it make? My question.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions based on finances. Going back to the school.
Okay, so one of the answers to one of your questions is, with paid staffing from Pender County, the local government retirement system does not allow us to put paid staffing into volunteer stations. That's something that the NCFCC.
You're going to own that station with Pender EMS and Fire. There are 2 stations at Maple Hill. The building the paid people work in belongs to Pender EMS and Fire and will go to you with your merger. The volunteer station has no sleeping quarters, no showers. All we got is bathrooms and a concrete slab with a roof over it.
Right,
So
but in addition to not being able to put them in the actual station,
they don't work for us now. They work for Pender EMS and Fire. They will now work with the county. I keep hearing this, but none of it makes any sense. A Pender employee is going to work in Hampstead. Why can't a Pender employee work in Maple Hill? They don't work for us. They support us. Ask the man beside you that nobody has answered this question. They never worked for us. We adopted Pender Fire and EMS SOPs, and all personnel managers are handled through them. I make one phone call to my person that I'm directed to talk to if I have a personnel issue or we think something's not being done right. It's taken care of with one phone call. Always has been, 8 years. Your plan has got a lot of gaps in it, and you're depending on a lot of volunteer service that may no longer be available to you. It was said last night in the meeting that the ISO thing had been worked out with Maple Hill. It is, as long as you maintain the volunteers. We get a chief in here that ain't friendly to volunteers because we don't know who that's going to be yet. You may not have a volunteer in 2 years. If you're going to maintain ISO 4 in Maple Hill, what you're going to have to do, double your paid personnel budget. Once again, Why mess with something that is working as great as this situation is? There's not one answer I've heard from either one of you that makes any sense, that can't be worked out through memorandums of understanding or policy changes. Not one. But yet we have every time I've talked to you, it's been no, you can't do it, we can't do it, we can't do it, don't want to do it. My question is again, why mess with something that's working as well as this situation has worked in Maple Hill?
I'm going to pass it on to you, brother, but I just, as a point of record last night, Commissioner George made a statement that he voted on the MOU based on the fact that he was told that all departments were on board in front of, by you, Sarah. And so that was incorrect information that was willingly given that affected his vote. I just want that to be corrected.
We'll just say that was a lie.
All right, I just wanted to address some of the financial issues. Number one, I want to go back to the school, the K-12 school over in Hampstead. Has that, because of the budget increases on that, is it because it exceeded the scope of the original project? Is the reason why there's a cost increase?
So there was a lot of time that lapsed from when the original projections were done for those projects. A lot of them were done during COVID, and I don't know how many people are in the construction business, but everything in construction has gone up astronomically over the last several years. So we didn't put together those projections. We used the projections of the engineers that provided them to make the budget and to pass the school bond accordingly.
All right. Getting to the financials for the EMS. I know at the September 2nd meeting, there was discussions about what it was going to cost for the county to basically assume the debt or the liability for the pensions. Have y'all gotten a number for that as of yet?
You mean the defined benefit plan for
Yeah.
Penry West Empire?
Yeah.
They have that number and they have fully funded that. So that's why that was removed from that.
So it's been
Debt.
fully funded by Penry EMS, the corporation itself?
Correct.
Okay, so that's not going to be a cost to the taxpayer.
Well, Penry West Empire funding does come from taxpayers, but yes.
It won't be an additional cost to the taxpayer.
Correct.
Okay. Have you budgeted any money for the operational expenses for the new system beginning on July the 1? Because of your cash flow, you're not going to be getting taxes until towards the middle of the fiscal year. And so I was just trying to figure out how much you were going to budget for the actual operational expenses.
We pay operational expenses to Penry West Empire equally 12 months of the year. So it should be no different.
Okay, so you're saying there's not going to be any additional increase for the operational expenses, to cover the operational expenses, especially from July 1 of 2026 to say January, February of 2027?
Yes, the operational expenses, as we described before, will increase by about $2.1 million based on retirement.
Okay. I thought that was salaries, that we're going to increase that. Salaries and
benefits. Retirement is most of that.
was most of that.
Yes.
Okay, so that's going to be an additional increase in the taxes that'll have to cover that expense. Is that correct?
That'll be an additional increase in what we will have to cover, yes.
Okay, so that'll be an additional taxpayer expense.
Correct.
Okay. And then the next question is, it goes to your tax rate, because you collect the tax rate for EMS and you collect the tax rate for the fire districts. How are you going to allocate these additional increases in taxes that will need to be covered, these different expenses? How are you going to allocate that between the EMS tax and the fire tax for the fire districts?
Well, if you incorporate that all into one tax rate, which is an option, then you can allocate it according to the need in the department's budget, as we
Okay.
do every other department of the
But
county.
the problem is you're going to have some departments that are not going to be part of a county-wide fire tax, because you've got Burgall, you got Atkinson, and I think you've got Rocky Point. So they're separate from the county's fire tax.
Correct.
So how are you going to allocate one fire tax, and where you apply the monies to all the fire districts in the county? Is that how you're going to do it, or are you still going to do it the way you're currently doing it in the current budget years and the past budget years, where there's a separate fire tax for each fire district?
That is something that we're still researching. It will depend on a lot of different factors, but we have looked into options of what that looks like, and there are some ways that we can incorporate it where we could actually decrease the overall tax rate a little bit.
That's a huge guess. I don't see how you're going to be able to decrease the taxes whenever you're not really getting any economies of scale, and so as a result, you're having more expenses than what you're saving. So you're still going to have an increase in taxes to the taxpayers, regardless. Next question is you can allocate up to 15 cents per $100 for a fire tax in any fire district as well as the EMS district. And you've been doing these general fund allocations. Why haven't you elevated the tax rates in the fire district and in the EMS district to bring in funds from those taxing districts versus having to hit the county taxpayers out of the general fund?
That's a good question. And that question has been asked over the last 6 or 8 years that we've been doing general fund contributions. And the answer varies. That's a board decision. And I think that's kind of why we're having this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the fire tax doesn't fund all of fire. Even if you increase them all to 15 cents, it's still not going to fund fire.
I agree with that. And so then I'll pose it to the board. Why do y'all do that? Why have you been doing that? Why haven't you been charging the 15 cents to the fire districts and to the EMS district in order to come up with funds instead of hitting the general fund? It's kind of a little unfair to the taxpayers, because, the taxpayers is the one who wind up paying for the cost of all of this. And that's why we're here, to try to figure out what the cost is going to be, which is my last question. When we will have a hard number as to what it's going to cost myself and all the taxpayers in this room and the taxpayers in this county for doing a merger that may not be financially feasible? That's to the board. I'm asking that question because we want to know. We want to know that.
I can't answer your last question because I've asked that same question several times, and that is my hang-up, part of my hang-up with it. What is the final cost? The prior question I can answer, I guess due to my ignorance of not knowing how the system worked, that has never been presented to me since February of 2023 as an option for us to be able to do that. It was always the 2 budget retreats that I've attended and the budget workshops that I've attended. That's never been presented as an option, as to raise that to 15%. It was my understanding that each fire district had to present it to their district and it had to be voted on in public hearings and everything. Due to my ignorance, I did not realize that was something that the county commissioners, as a setting board, could go out and raise that tax rate without permission from the residents. So that's my ignorance.
Because y'all set that tax rate every year, so you have the option to do that.
Right. We set the tax. Yes, sir. You're right. We set the tax rate, and I knew the ad valorem is something that we could set.
Right.
But as far as the fire tax rates, that's my ignorance. I apologize.
And going back to my last question, if you don't know what the number is going to be, how can you make something effective July 1, which is 9 months out? That doesn't make a lot of sense. I could see it being 2, maybe 3 years down the road to give everybody an opportunity to pull it together. But trying to pull something together in 18 months is not financially feasible, number one. Number two, it doesn't give enough information to the taxpayers in this county. And number three, it makes us look very bad in the overall general public that we're trying to pull off something that we know that's not going to really work effectively come July 1st of next year. Thank you.
Okay. Is it on? I may help you answer some of those questions. They did it behind closed doors, behind our backs, because we didn't know nothing about it. Yeah, it was taught in 2013, but they didn't bother to mention it and get it out in the open and for us to have a vote. They did it all Willie Nelson, just like she asked him, and they made the decision. But it was affecting all of us. You should have had open meetings and got our input, and none of you bothered to do that. It's our tax money you're talking about, but you didn't bother to ask none of us. Did it all willy-nilly and take it or like it, lump it, or whatever. Just get over it. And most of the people wants to know, do a scenario. Do like somebody's paying $2,000 a year for taxes. What's their taxes going to look like after this? Just use that scenario.
I've done that math. I have more spreadsheets that do that as well. It's going to depend on which option we go with.
We don't want no depend on. We don't want no variance. No, we don't want that. We want black and white facts. Use the scenario. If a resident's paying, say, $2,000 a year for income for taxes on their property, what's their taxes going to look like next year?
Well,
that's just a scenario used out there.
Right. So the scenario I did is a tax bill for $200,000 property and a DMV bill for $20,000 vehicle. And the option one is currently what we're doing. Option two is, well, there were several different options. They all have spreadsheets that go with them, but I couldn't print them all. But it depends on which district you're in as to what happens to your taxes. That's my point. Because if you average the tax rate and you live in Atkinson and you're paying 7 cents, then your tax rate's going to go up, especially if you apply it across countywide. If you live in Long Creek and your tax rate is 11 cents, then your tax rate's going to go down. So it's not as cut and dry as it sounds.
What's living in District 5?
District 5 has several different fire districts. Do you know which one you're talking about?
Oh, how lovely. It's just so peachy.
On that subject, I would like to ask the board how you could vote to go ahead with a project that you did not have a consolidated total cost idea, approval, knowledge of how much it was going to cost. How could you do it? How could you vote to do it without knowing how much it was going to cost?
Yeah, where's the good steward at there?
How could you vote to approve a plan when you didn't have a total tax disclosure, a cost disclosure, sorry?
Ms. Blue, what was the cost to fire and EMS for last year?
To Penry Mess and Fire, the total budget was $20,584,306.
There you go.
Well, so now we know it's going to be around $25 million. So it's going to cost us more.
$5 million more?
Give or take, yeah, that's what it looks like. You're not saving us money. And you went ahead and went with the merger plan without having an estimate of how much it was going to cost.
It shouldn't cost much more than it's costing
Shouldn't,
the taxpayer now.
But you didn't have the estimate of what it's going to cost.
We don't know what your property is worth next year under this new reevaluation we're going to have to sit down and work through also. That's going to be really eye-opening when we want to try to keep it a revenue neutral and not raise your taxes.
Are you going to continue to deplete the fund balance to pay for things? How much do we have in our fund balance now, and can we help ourselves if we have a major hurricane or flood event?
Well, in my opinion, I think we have too much in the fund balance that the taxpayers have been sticking in there as a piggy bank. 2.5 times almost too much.
So if we have a major event like another Florence, then, and we have to rely on FEMA, the last time we relied on FEMA, it took over a year to be able to work towards things like mold remediation in the schools and the mounds of trash along the side of the road. Asheville's sitting up there still waiting for their FEMA help. And how do we know that we'll get that? If we are sitting here in a flood zone and a major hurricane pathway, and you're saying we have too much in our fund balance, I hear you, but I highly disagree with you.
Well, I had another question in mind, but that popped another question in my head. I keep hearing every year, we got way too much in the fund balance. Why haven't the taxes gone down to level it to what it should be? Every year, they stay the same or they go up. There's no balancing down.
Yeah, I'll respond to that, and I'm going to talk real loud since everybody didn't hear me before. I want to make sure everybody hear me real loud. I never had that problem before I joined the Board of Commissioners, and I talked to the South, actually. But actually, I made a suggestion to the manager in a pretty lengthy email asking that we relook at reducing our taxes this year. If the fund balance is at a high rate and the citizens are continuing to pay into that, I believe that we do need to reduce that. I think we need to look at that. We've seen other counties do that, and I think that's something to consider. It's your money, and I think we need to give it back to you.
Thank
Or at
you.
least reduce it.
All right. Thank you. Now, my other question, I'm going to direct that at Mr. Groves. Last night, you said that 80% of your voters were for this merger. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. And you also said that you won all the districts. I want to congratulate you for that. I'll agree that you did win all the districts. Of course, remember in the general election, you were unopposed. You're going to win them all. Now, if 80% of your voters were for that in a county of 70,000, that's your number. You got 16,870 votes. So that means that 13,400 are all for it out of 70,000 people in the county. So that's not a very big number.
That's a pretty big number whenever you take in account the business cards that you put all over Bergall not to vote for me, and then the 8-foot signs at every election office that you put up not to vote for me. I think I did pretty good.
I think I've been proven right, too. Thank you.
He sure did.
Well, the question remains, you may have gotten 80% of the votes, but how do you reconcile 80% of those people are in favor of this merger? It's not the same thing. It's two different animals.
You answered yourself.
Good.
You got all the answers, so go ahead and answer it.
Well, the answer is you just are
I've
confused.
already
And
answered. I'm not going to say it.
No, you
again, but
didn't.
Say it again.
you said 80% of the people want this merger. But that's not the same figure as the people who voted for you. It's not the same thing.
You got a right to your opinion. I got a right to mine.
Your facts don't add up.
So you said that we aren't going to know how much it costs until we have a tax reevaluation, and we aren't going to know how much it costs until we run more numbers. When can we get the number of how much our taxes will have to go up in each fire district so that we can know exactly how much this merger is going to cost, and we can know exactly how much the taxes will have to go up to pay for the increased salary and retirement benefits and stuff?
So the math that we've done so far tells you the dollars that it will cost. As far as the tax rate goes, there's two factors in this situation. One is, what would the tax rate look like based on the current structure with no revaluation? That answer, I can do the math as much as we want to, but when I give you that number, it's going to be irrelevant, because when we do the tax reval, which is effective January 1st, 2026, values will increase and the tax rate will have to come down. So even if I say a number now, it's irrelevant to what will actually happen in the future, because the reval is not effective until January 1st. So after January 1st, when our reval is complete, then we can do that math and I can tell you exactly what that will look like. But until we have those figures from the reval, we can't give you a tax rate number.
So if we're not gonna know how much the tax rate goes up until January 1st, shouldn't we wait to figure out if we're going to go through with the merger until after January 1st, when we know the taxes and we have exactly how much it's going to increase our taxes, and then we discuss it?
Won't you like Nancy Pelosi sign the bill and then they'll tell you what it is after you sign it? Vote for it.
So basically, you're not going to have any real numbers until January. Is that correct?
We have numbers, we won't have a tax rate until then, yes.
All right. Knowing how the tax office has been operating, because they, just got the tax bills out last week, will they realistically have the reval numbers in early January?
Yes,
Okay. You're confident of that?
yes.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. Second question is, so would you by February the 1st be able to have numbers available for the taxpayers to know what it's going to cost each taxing district as well as the county to do this merger?
The tax office usually gives me those numbers mid-January, and so plugging them into the spreadsheet and doing the math by February 1st should be feasible, yes.
Should be feasible.
Yes.
Okay. So if we all come to the first meeting in February of 2026, we should be able to have those numbers?
In theory, yes.
In theory.
I don't have a crystal ball.
Do the 5 board members agree that that's possible? Y'all, the boss, y'all help her do her job. So we're asking you as the leaders,
I can't.
will you have that?
I can't answer that question. And my question, along with your question,
Yeah.
is next year we're bringing on a new school, which is going to have additional operational cost of well into millions of dollars. We're triple the size of our jail, which is going to have additional operating cost in the millions of dollars. And we redid our Health and Human Services building. It's a huge building, and we're not reducing real estate, so we're going to be continuing to pay operating costs on the current facility plus the new facility. I don't know those numbers either. So all those numbers together is equal to several of millions of dollars along with this merger. So I don't think that February 1st, I don't know how we could know those numbers because we won't have the operating costs for the others.
So then what you're really saying is because you won't have those numbers, because that's really the budget season for the county and all the municipalities in the county and the states around in the state, is to start putting together numbers for the upcoming budget. If you don't have those budget numbers, how can you realistically put together a budget for 26-27 and have a new emergency management system, whatever you want to call this thing, operational as of July the 1st? I'd just like to know that answer. I don't think you can. Plus, we all know that you just admitted that we're going to have a lot of new operational costs coming up, which is going to affect the taxes and the tax rate, because there's no way you're going to be revenue neutral to be able to provide all those additional services and stay revenue neutral, and plus add on the EMS services. So it makes sense to me just to delay this decision a year or two until you've got better numbers to work with. And number two, you know what your new operation cost will be for taking on those new buildings. Plus you got other needs in the county, infrastructure needs in the county that need to be addressed as well. So I would suggest to this board right here tonight that the best thing you could do as good representatives of this county and of the taxpayers is to delay the decision to do the EMS system this coming up budget year. That makes most sense to me.
Don't y'all agree with him?
Then why are you representing us, making bad decisions for us? Because that's a bad decision. Because if you're in business and you don't know what numbers are, how can you make a good business decision? And you've been elected to make good business decisions for the county, for the taxpayers, and for the employees. And if you don't have good numbers, how can you do that as a leader and a manager of this county? You can't.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Keenan.
I would just like to say that, ladies, I think you have been tasked with making a silk purse out of a pig's ear. And you've done a monumental job at trying to do it. But the problem lies with the people who are asking you to do it.
Amen.
So if you can't have the numbers for the taxes by February 1st because you also have other operating cost increases, what is the earliest date that you could give us a number of what our taxes will increase that we can then have town halls and discuss it then with the full picture and all the information we need to understand if this merger is a good idea?
What I can tell you by February 1st is what revenue neutral will be. That's just math. I can't tell you what the tax rate will be until the budget is completed. There are other factors that go into it, like Commissioner George said, and our normal budget process in a non-reval year doesn't end until mid-May. We have plenty of budget meetings. They're public meetings. Anyone's welcome to come to them. They're very rarely attended. So I would encourage anyone that wants to come to them. We're happy to answer questions. We have all of the information in front of us at that point. Again, we don't have final numbers until mid-May or even the end of May in a normal year. All I'm saying is by February 1st, I can calculate revenue neutral based on the new values that we get as of January 1st.
So should we talk about the merger when we're talking about next year's budget, since that's the discussion of what we can spend everything on, what we can afford? Should this not wait until we have the revenue neutral tax rate, the revenue neutral numbers, and what we think we're going to be spending money on in the next budget cycle? Isn't this a discussion to go in the next budget and not something to happen now?
It will be a discussion for next budget cycle. It'll have to be. But to be clear, it's a discussion every year in the budget cycle when we have to determine how much of the county tax rate that we give to fire, and then we have to balance the rest of the budget without whatever contribution we have to make to fire. And then there's also other large parts of our budget that we have funding requirements for, but very little say over. Most of our budget goes to schools. So it's going to take a coordination between everybody to get to those answers. And I think next year during the budget process, it's going to require a lot of conversation either way, whether you do it now or do it later. It's just a matter of what conversations we can have and how far we get with them.
Madam Manager, all due respect, these people come to hear from us. It's almost feel like you were responding to all the questions, and it's almost like we're at a lecture versus a town hall. And just as I asked last night, I know there's a lot of issues out there that a lot of you all have. If you have other issues or questions, I mean, all of us have voted on our convictions and where we at on each issue. So I'd like to know if there are any other questions that you all have that I might can add to this discussion on.
Good evening. I just want to know what Pender EMS and Fire is doing to alleviate the shorting staffage that they're going on right now. And if you have worked with the county to see if there's anything that they can do to assist in that matter.
Yes, actually, I have presented an incentive proposal to the county manager. It will come up on Monday night, October 6th, before the board to be voted on by the Board of Commissioners. That incentive program includes longevity pay, just to parallel what the county does for all our employees, taking in consideration time and service that we currently have. It includes a percentage increase in salary across the board for operational staff currently. It includes a sign-on bonus package for firefighters so that we can try to attract certified firefighters and driver operators. It includes a $57,000 package for an advanced EMT academy to hire more ALS personnel. So to answer your question, yes, we are working diligently with the county to try to take and acquire additional funding for the direct purpose of bringing in additional personnel to fill the voids for the many vacancies that have been created over the last 6 to 7 months.
Thank you. Last night you said that the majority of the department was not in favor of this merger. Have you sent out any kind of survey to your department to see whether that number has changed, where the statistics come from, whether it's on the EMS side or on the fire side?
No, I have not done an independent survey. I found out today that one of my firefighters done his own survey, and I will tell you that as it stands right now, I'll break it down by division. No one in our logistics division supports this merger. No one in our IT division supports this merger. No employee in our administrative division supports this merger. Majority of our EMS division is not for this merger. Where the majority of personnel are for this merger is the fire division solely, and that's fine. Everybody has their desire. I support that as the assistant chief of this organization. I support all my employees, and they have their own independent opinion. But that's where the majority lies, is in the fire division. The other 4 divisions are not supportive of this merger. As I said last night, and as I alluded to one of the questions I answered, our EMS division was a model EMS organization across the entire state of North Carolina, recognized by OEMS, recognized annually at the North Carolina State OEMS Conference as a model organization, used as a model organization to take and assist other organizations in getting up and running. And in the last 6 months, this merger has destroyed our EMS division. It has destroyed our company. We're now up to 40 vacancies that we've lost since March 1st. Now, can I say that every piece of that is because of the merger? No, but I can tell you that I've seen all the exit interviews, and I can tell you that every one of them, there's one common theme, and that is the uncertainty and the insecurity of what's going on, because nobody has met with any of our employees. You're just now, as a general public, having town hall meetings. Guess what? Ain't nobody met with a single employee of Pender EMS and Fire to answer any single question about any single thing. There's not been a single meeting held with any of our employees. So you can understand why there's probably some insecurity and some uncertainty as to what's going to happen. But I hope that answered your question.
Partially. I know for a fact because I speak with these people, and yes, the merger is a part of their exit interview, but when it comes to benefits, when it comes to pay, those are the top 2 things listed as reasons for leaving. It's not because of the merger. You said it yourself that the fire division is 100% on board with this merger.
No, I didn't say 100%. It's not 100%. It's the majority. It's not 100%, it's a majority, because I took today, after last night's statement and everything, I went around along with my battalion chiefs, and I took and went and saw people, talked to people, and asked people. So it is not 100%, and I'm not going to get in an argument because I try to maintain a professional demeanor. Like I said, I support my firefighters to do what they want to do with regard to this merger. If they want the merger, I will support them in that. I have been working diligently to support this company, to support the MOU, and to look out for the employees. I made sure that the MOU, just like Commissioner George mentioned last night, the MOU went through 3 changes. The reason it went through 3 changes is because I fought against the first 2 to make sure the third one protected the employees. That's my job, to look out for the employees, look out for the company, and look out for the community. 3 things I've got to do, and that's what I'm trying to do. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. It does. I appreciate your time.
I'd like to ask the board if there would be any consideration for a merger with just fire and not EMS.
I can't answer that myself personally because I do not have a adequate understanding or receive the numbers to make any decision regarding the merger at this time. I too have been asking for that several times. Now I've got numbers presented tonight that I need to go back and look at, but I've asked that question early on. It does seem like the EMS folk are the ones who do not want to go with the merger. And so could we do this in a phase where we do the fire first? But I think before we do anything, we need to get all of the numbers in order to make that decision.
Amen. Thank you. Anybody else want to address that on the board?
Yeah.
I would be in favor of that.
Mr. George, you spoke last night about explaining to us how the deal was done, how the progression of this thing started. Could you address some of that tonight?
As far as the merger or the merger in the past?
This merger. How it came to be, the process that went down with the takeover of the board.
The current process started prior to March 10th with 3 commissioners, I guess, deciding to bring forth a resolution that dissolved pretty much Pender EMS's fire board and set a date for the merger to happen. And at that time, it was December of this year, so in a couple of months. That was the original plan. So that's, to my knowledge, that's how it started.
And then by dissolving or taking off people from the EMS board, how did that progression go?
The resolution removed everyone other than the Pender EMS and fire appointed board members. It removed any citizens or me, which I planned on resigning anyway, but it removed me along with the citizens that sat there and appointed the 3. The initial resolution took the whole board, and when the attorney finally just clarified you can't actually take over the whole board, it was reduced to just taking 3 seats and re-advertising.
But then one of those seats, I think Mr. Groves left. Was there a reason for that?
Repeat your question.
Why did you leave the EMS and fire board?
Because I will to. That's why I wanted to.
Why did you want to?
Because I wanted to.
So then it was down to 2. It was just Mr. Burton and Mr. Springer. And
yes, it was Commissioner Burton and Commissioner Springer after that, and we advertised for citizens. We received applications for each district.
so then when it came time to vote for the budget, Mr. Springer and Mr. Burton could not, as commissioners, vote on a budget when they were on the board. So they took themselves off the board and voted on the budget and then put themselves back on the board?
I'm confused of that whole situation. I went back and reviewed that today. They did mention it during the original budget meeting, but as if you remember, we did not pass the budget that night. We had to come back for the budget, and that was never mentioned after that. So I don't know, and the budget was voted on as a whole. So I'm not sure how that happened. I mean,
Well, so Mr. Burton and Mr. Springer, are y'all still on the board? The EMS board?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm back on here. One of the main reasons that has been continuously given for this takeover was to get all the employees under the county for the insurance and all the other benefits of being a county employee. But at the same time, when all these questions come up, it was an outstanding service, highly rated as it was. And in these conversations, nothing will change. Even with the takeover, the service will be the same. A majority of the employees don't want it. So the one reason doesn't seem to be even valid at all. It seems like the county is trying to force them to get under the county employee stuff. It just absolutely makes no sense. The employees don't want it, and your main reason is pretty much invalid. That's it.
We'd really like to hear from you too, down there, that put yourself on the board. Why? The guys that was on there, wasn't they doing a good job? Wasn't the people that was on the board already doing a good job? We want to hear from you guys. We came here to hear from you guys, and you guys has clammed up all night and not said a whole lot of nothing.
There's not been a whole lot of questions. There's been a whole
I'm
lot of
asking
talk.
you one now.
Before we were on the board, we got no information because we were told we weren't allowed to talk to them. We weren't allowed to talk to their employees. They were a private company and didn't have to answer to us once your tax dollars went to them. That's what we were told. Now, anybody please tell me that I'm lying here. They're a private company. You're handing your tax dollars and subsidizing a private company to do with those dollars whatever they want to do, and you're not accountable for them, to $22 million a year. Period.
How about you, Mr. Springer?
I was going to tell you who I replaced.
You thought you were better than the person that was on there?
I don't know who was on there.
But you put yourself on the board.
That's correct.
And you just kicked that person home, and you just put yourself on the board, and you don't even know who you sent home.
Allegedly.
Wow, that's some good stuff, ain't it? Sir, down on the end.
Yes, ma'am.
Did anybody from the commissioners go talk to anybody there, like Mr. Burton says, about wanting info on all whatever he was wanting? Whether he was supposed to have it or not, I don't know sure if he was supposed to have it. I don't even know if he was just wanting to get it just to be nosy or imply, because the EMS has a big annual purse. And it's not smelling good for you guys. It's looking like you guys was after the purse. It's really looking rotten. We want to hear from you.
Yes, ma'am. The information he's referring to is they wanted to know the salaries and the names of all our employees and all of their personnel information. We don't release personnel information. We can't legally release personal information. That would be just like the IRS taking and sending out mailers to everybody saying, hey, here's all your information. The information we do share annually with the county, and about one of the only agencies in the county that does this, is we pay a third party every year to have an annual audit of that $20+ million to account for every dollar we spend and where it goes. We also take and report on our bi-monthly board meetings with the county. We send in, we are public board, we have a public board meeting, we're open to the public, minutes are taken, and the county manager / finance officer for Pender County has sat on our board for multiple years. So she knows exactly what happens within our agency on a regular basis. So for them to say that they had no idea or no clue what was going on in our private company, well, to some degree, being a sovereign company, I guarantee you Waste Management don't take and tell them what's going on in theirs either. But we did share all the information required by our contract with the county. We have every year, and we accounted for every dollar spent, both general fund and capital.
Thank you. So back to you commissioners. It ain't looking good for you guys. Not at all. We want to know why you wanted people's personal info. It was none of your business, was it?
I never wanted anybody's name.
You just said you wanted info and you couldn't get it.
We needed information for the merger on positions
On a merger
and
that nobody
salaries.
wanted. Yeah, on the merger, yeah, it hadn't even
Ms.
come up.
Saunders, you're one of 70,000. You're one person. I value your opinion. I do. But I'm not going to go back and forth with you. That's not productive.
Ain't that what this is supposed to be about?
No.
Ain't this town hall meeting
But
we're supposed to have a
but
dialogue?
you've done 90% of the talking tonight and last night.
Wait, is that not my right?
But it's your right. You can talk all you want, but I don't have to listen to it all night.
Oh, you don't
Yeah.
have to listen to
No,
your
ma'am, I
constituents.
don't. No, I don't.
Oh, that's what you did with the merger. You didn't have to listen to your constituents, didn't have to ask, you didn't have to do nothing. Just did as you ding dang well please. Well, willy-nilly done. You spend our money like you want. Y'all hear it? Y'all hear it? You wanted info that you shouldn't have had. And there's a deep purse there that sounds like me you guys were after. Tell me why.
Elaborate your question about the purse,
You
and
tell
I'm
me
after.
why you took people off the board and put yourself on there when it was working great. It had a great it had a great rapport for the whole state of North Carolina. Why? Why do you want to mess with something, tear up something that ain't broke?
That's your opinion.
Oh, we want to hear
I
from you.
respect that.
We want to hear from you. That's what this is about. We want to hear.
I'm fully on the record with my decision. I'm fully on the record for the last 12 months.
We haven't heard it. We want to know the reason.
It is.
Yes,
And
we
it's
want to know.
Those 200 employees that's going to come out on top. That's who I'm doing it for.
Yeah, there are 200 that don't want it.
You don't understand the amount of people who are scared to death to even speak out because they'll be fired. Yeah, you don't understand that. The people who are supporting, the phone calls I'll get when I leave here tonight saying thank you.
Oh, well, I've only
So
heard
I take
one
into
person.
account everyone. I'm
I've only
sorry.
heard one person that act like he wanted, and I think he was with the fire department. So why don't you just go with your fire department and leave the EMS alone? That was a question. We want to know. The people wants to know. Y'all heard it. They're not answering.
Hey, I have just a few questions. The first one's kind of more for Meg. I'm sorry. The first question's kind of for Meg here. Since we learned that the school costed way more than anticipated because of building cost, is the projected number for the cost high enough to cover any increases that may arise? I saw on the spreadsheet the new garage was like $15 million. So I just want to make sure if this does go through, that there's already a buffer in there. Is that true?
Do you mean is there enough money in the school bond, existing bonds, to pay for that $15 million?
So for the
Is that your
budget
question?
that you have together, the numbers that you're just kind of working to try to, I know that you're in a hard position trying to make this work. And so the numbers that you're trying to work with, is there a buffer in there to pay for, like I said, that's $15 million is a lot for a garage. So I'm just making sure, like, there's a buffer in there in case costs go up.
The original cost of that was projected around $9 million, but that was before it was to include the school bus portion. That is a very rough estimate. We would have to get engineers involved to figure out an actual
Okay, because
cost
it was
estimate
$15
for
million
that.
was on the spreadsheet for the budget. for
Right, so that
specific-
we're not ignoring the fact that we do have to build something, yes.
Okay, all right. So basically, there is a buffer. Is that kind of what you're saying? In case prices go up? Or no?
I don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah.
Almost every contract for construction includes contingencies for unforeseen things. But we would have to actually put it out to bid to know that number for sure.
Okay.
Which we have not done yet. We're in the process of writing
So
that.
where does the $15 million number kind of like come from? If there hasn't been bids put out? And I don't mean that to like attack you or anything. I know you guys are working hard to get something together. But
So it was based on a warehouse RFP that we have done that was basically a rough estimate of square footage, similar function, not exact same, but price per square foot, general
Well,
concept.
I personally would like to see some contractors actually put in real bids for that number before
Sure.
any of this moves any further. That's just my 2 cents. I mean, y'all can do what you want, but I mean, that's what I would do. If I hire
Sure.
somebody, I'm getting multiple bids.
Absolutely.
before I move
We're
forward.
required to by law, yes.
Okay. The other question is kind of for the board here. Well, I guess it is not kind of, but it is. I'm going to just be really honest here, and I don't want anyone to feel like I'm attacking you because I'm not, but I am really frustrated. But the culture of how the Pender County government has been working lately just feels like when you make decisions, they're based on feelings, and you're just not completely informed about everything. And it just makes me really uneasy to know that the same culture is going to be guiding our emergency responders. With that being said, are you open to extending the deadline of July 1st? I hate to see this get pushed through. I'd rather, instead of trying to make a decision and then go back on it, let's just take our time. Let's don't shove a square peg in a circle hole. You know, let's take our time and make sure we're making a good, solid decision. And if you are open to extending the deadline of July 1st, could it possibly be rolled out in stages after that? That's my question for the board.
I appreciate the question. I'm good where the process is now, where staff is working. If something was to pop up that would be a barrier, I'd be open to looking at that. But I think the process moving forward right now is working very well, and that's just where I'm at.
Okay.
I've done the job they do, so I'm not up here ignorant. I've done that, and I know what it takes. Chief Haraway, I'm very familiar with. I've been a colleague of his in the same department, in a career department before. I've worked alongside him a lot, and I have full faith and confidence he's true in everything he said about supporting his staff. And I think I think there's a lot of people trying to scare folks out there using this, your taxes are going up, when they're going to get a whole level of protection better. It's going to be so much better for those employees, and they'll realize that. They'll be able to take advantage of a retirement pension that they don't have now. The defined benefits plan was asked earlier. Up until 2019, there was a defined benefits plan for Pender EMS and Fires Company. But any employee hired after that was not allowed to be in that defined benefits retirement plan. That's a problem. There's several people in this room that get state and local government pensions, including me. And I think it's a great thing. I think when a young family is paying over $1,700 a month out of their own check, out of their take-home money for family medical insurance, I don't know how they live. I don't know how they could do that. And that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the actual boots on the ground, the people that come to your house at 3 o'clock in the morning. I know the administrative team does not want the merger. I know that. Yeah, you run a private company, you don't want to lose that. You want those tax dollars to come in every year. But I think it's far better for the employees and the citizens that they serve, and it's just where I'm at. Thank you, though.
Okay. I did have one last question, and I know you kind of touched on your answer, but maybe if the other 4 board members might have an answer to this one. I heard this gentleman speak earlier that their department's running on a budget of $138,000 a year for that one department. So why could there just not be an investigation on how the $22 million is being spent for the rest of those departments instead of having a merger?
There's an audit that Pender EMS and Fire presents to the county every year that shows where their money goes. It's available to you if you request it. It's all public record. They're a nonprofit. Some departments provide audits, some financial statements, some don't. But the money that went to Pender EMS and Fire, you can see where every dollar went with their audit. As Chief Haraway said earlier, you can see their financial statements every month. Ms. Blue is on that board. She sits right beside their finance person in the meetings, or she did when I was on the board. And I'm hoping, since she's in charge of multi-millions of dollars for the county, that if she thought there was some kind of waste, fraud, and abuse, that she would have, been conscious of it and drew attention to it at that time. It's $138,000 is not a lot of money. And that's why they provided, Pender EMS and Fire was providing staffing for them. If they had to provide staffing, they could not. If they had to provide benefits, they could not. Same way with the other departments. Rocky Point, they do a fantastic job running their department with the money they get. But their paid staff are paid firefighters from other municipalities or county agencies, so they don't have to pay the benefits. So that's where the money comes in at. That's what costs, is the benefits. Same way with Pender Lee. Pender Lee does a phenomenal job with their money to run their volunteer department, and the additional money that they get from the county went to pay Pender EMS and Fire paid staff. Pender EMS and Fire, it was Pender EMS for years, and they didn't ask to become in the fire business. They got in the fire business because of wrongdoing from a volunteer fire department in Hampstead and Surf City. And so the county pushed those 2 stations on them. Then they were directed against their wanting to build a station out on 421 for the county so we could build a commercial industrial park out there. Pender EMS and Fire over the years has done everything that the county has required them to do with the money they've done. They had to come fight for money to get raises. If money's so freely to give away now, why wasn't this money so freely to give away in the past and allowed them to maintain their organization? We could have gave the same money to them that they're going to require now. There's a lot of unanswered questions about this merger. Chief Motley mentioned that they don't have berthing quarters in their station. So Pender EMS and Fire got a grant from the state to build the station out at Malpas Corner. If you know where that's at, it's being built now. Since it's becoming a county agency, that grant doesn't cover it anymore, because now it becoming a public building with berthing quarters, it has to have a sprinkler system. So the county had to give them additional money for that. And it's going to be the same way with these other volunteer stations as they come online. If we own them, Topsail Beach says that we're not getting their station, that they own it and they have rights to first refusal if Pender EMS Fire ever leave it. The agreement's with them. So we don't even really know what we own, what our buildings are going to have to be brought up to meet ADA standards. We don't know those answers. OSHA standards. She speaks of the $15 million garage. That's a $15 million building. To upfit that garage, there's another $5 or $6 or $8 million. So that's $22 million in a building. Whereas now, they don't have to, they're a nonprofit, they're a private company. They don't have all these restrictions that's going to become opposed upon the county once they become a county agency. There's just so many unanswered questions. You asked, would we be, as a commissioner, yes. I don't disagree with the merger. I think it, and as I said in the past, and my words get taken and turned around whichever way, whoever wants to hear them, hears them. I'm not against the merger. I think it's a great opportunity for the employees. I really do. But it's going to cost the taxpayers. And I'll give you an example. One of the ideas that's floating, she didn't mention it, but one of the ideas that's floating is rolling the fire tax into ad valorem tax. So what that does is the people in the towns of Surf City, Topsail Beach, Atkinson, Burgall, that pay for municipality fire protection with their municipality taxes will now be paying for a countywide system. Well, the people from Surf City are raising Cain right now with me about it because they just got a 30% tax increase. And now we're going to add more taxes onto them. And yes, it was being subsidized by the general fund. If we were able to subsidize it by the general fund, I agree, we were collecting too much taxes. And I said that when I sat on the school board, when our taxes were steady going up and they were blaming the school system for every dime that they were increasing the taxes. If we're adding 20% to the fund balance every year, we're over collecting. And I hope that answers your question. Maybe I just rambled, but that's where I'm at.
That was great. That was a lot of good information. And I just want to clarify, the reason I asked about the $22 million is because that was also given as a reason for the merger. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit. So I guess I'll just leave you guys with this, and I'll hand this off to someone else. But I'd really love for the board to reconsider the July 1st deadline. I think everyone can kind of meet in the middle on that. And then possibly let's do this in stages. I mean, I'm not really for or against because I'm still learning about everything. Like you just told a whole load of information that I didn't even think about. We got to bring buildings up to code and things like that. And it's kind of like I said, it's kind of worrisome to me how it feels like you guys are just making decisions and then you're like, oh crap, we need to backtrack a little bit. And just like there's not bids for the building, like we're just coming up with this number. And it's not an attack, by the way. It's just, it is what it is, you know? I mean, I feel like we don't have to put a square peg in a circle hole. Let's just take our time and back it up a little bit, slow down this whole situation, have more solid numbers that a lot of people want, and have more informed decisions. That's all I'm asking for.
Good evening. I just wanted to make a comment to Chairman Burton. I know you said that after 2019 that the defined benefits plan went away and you kind of left it at that.
It was just not available to new employees.
Okay. 401k was. So 401k was still offered to new employees, and employees that had been there previously and had the defined benefit plan could stay in the defined benefit plan, which we did until it had to be canceled, ended, where we were no longer able to contribute to it in May of this year because of talks of the merger. So I just wanted it to be clear that we did have retirement. Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry if you took it that way, but I didn't mean that the employees prior to 2019 didn't have retirement. You did. That if I would have gotten hired after 2019, I would have just had to get a 401k like any American citizen can get.
Correct. You'd get a 401k with us, and Pender contributed to it as well.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you just went out and got your own 401k.
Sure.
So that template that you just laid out where part of the company was on defined benefits and part of it was on a 401k. I work for one of the largest companies in the world. I work for GE Vernova, and our company is that way. Part of us, I've been there 35 years. I'm on a old pension program, and the new hires are on a 401k. We just lost the mechanics out of the Pender County bus garage. Guess where they went to work? GE, on a 401k.
Hi, I've got a question, and I'm asking this in I want to open this up for you guys a little bit. I think it's clear in the conversations that we've had tonight and presumably last night and in previous board meetings that there is definitely a lack of trust that has been developed between the board and a large portion of the community. Some of that is evidenced by things like where we voted for a bill or money that would go towards Burgall Middle School, and now we're being told, well, we ran out of money, that's not going to happen. You know, those kind of things, that erodes trust over time. In the same, moment, we're hearing, well, 80% of my district voted for me, so 80% agree with every decision I make, and it comes across a little bit like a blank check. And we're over here feeling like, we're not giving you a blank check when we elect you. We're putting our trust in you when we elect you. But we would hope that when new issues come around that you're going to be willing and open to listen to us, right? So I have a two-part question in that vein. And that is one, and I'd love to hear from each of you, because right now you do represent the whole county, because that's how we are voting with this at-large system. I would love to know what each of you feel like you're doing as an individual board member to help rebuild some of that trust and to engage with your constituents. And I'm not really just talking about having them set up a town hall meeting for you. Like, what are you specifically doing to rebuild that trust? Or go ahead and tell me that you don't care and that because you're there, you have a blank check and you can do what you want to do. Like, I want to hear that directly. But I also want to hear, like, what is your main concern? Like, what is your number one thing that you're looking at when you're having your talks and you're considering things for Pender County in the next 6 months, the next year? What are the things that are on your minds that you're hoping to contribute and do to make this county better?
I'll go first, and thank you for those questions. And we had some discussions before the meeting tonight, some very, very productive discussions. I am in no way, shape, or form a politician, and I never will say that. I'm a blue-collar worker. I'm a middle-class guy. My mother was a nurse. My father was a firefighter, a career firefighter, as was my grandfather, and as was I, for the same department. I just want to try to serve in my capacity. It's all I've ever been as a public servant. I want to try to do the best to my ability to try to make this county, where my family's been from over 160 years, good for the next generations, for my 3 grandchildren and for my 3 children, which I only have 1 in the county now. The others, my son lives in Asheville, which Ms. Whiteside's referenced to a while ago, Asheville. She was one of his teachers. So we've got connections here, but I want to try to make the county better for the future than the way I found it. And I just think that I can try to bring some common sense to some of these issues. All 5 of us sitting up here, and I think that I'll get agreement with this, it's a thankless job. None of us do it. We're all accused of being into pockets of developers and all that. Well, that's a felony, and I'm not going to prison for anyone, and I've told people that before. We just try to do the best we can. We don't all agree on everything. We have debate. We try to remain respectful to each other as we do with you. I respect each and every person in the room. I might not agree with you on everything, but I would agree to talk with you, not just at you. But that's where I stand. But thank you so much for the question.
What I can tell you is I still stand on what I campaigned on, safety and security, which the rest of the board also voted to up their pay. I also think with the Pender EMS and Fire merger, this is a public safety thing. They're losing employees, but that doesn't take into account the employees that we lost to. We have a retention problem. I'm not going to stand up here and beat around the bush. young lady back there, she said, over here, she said something about retaining employees. It's not just a Pender EMS and fire problem. It's a whole county-wide problem. I recognize that. I know what's going on. But you have to figure out the culprit of the problem to be able to get it fixed. As the rest of the commissioners, I feel confident to say that we're all actively trying to work on that, if that helps answer your question.
What I do to build trust or try to restore trust, because it does concern me. I came on this board in 2007, and it's almost like it's a different world being a commissioner now. The trust and hearing the lack of transparencies and the things that, as Chair Burton said, that we're accused of are things that are new to me as my role as a commissioner. But I can tell you what I try to do is be engaged. I miss more time from work in this role. Even this week, I met on Monday with WBD, we looking at companies like Amazon and how we can support them. And my question was, how do we bring them, make them bring competitive jobs in, not just jobs, but good paying job. I represent one of the districts that have a low income folks, and I want to make sure we got good wages when incentives are provided. Now, Amazon didn't get a lot of incentives, but many times when we did do companies like Acme Fish Companies and others, and we had to fly to New York and other places to recruit them to come here, I thought coming back on this board, that's what I was going to be focused on. Economic development and helping bring in jobs in, and the things that we did those years as a commissioner. So leaving that same meeting later that day, I met with the farmers from the Volunteer Ag District, and I met with all the farmers to hear their concerns. I felt like if I'm going to meet with corporate America leaders, I need to meet with the farmers. Today, later that day, I met with another group. I'm in Maple Hill. When you all call me, I'm there today. Got a call from Leslie earlier today. I was on the coast this morning. I met with teachers there, and then left that meeting and went and go and met with folks in Surf City and then in Hampstead and other places, and talked and walked around the businesses and talked to business leaders today before I left there, and then finished up another conversation with DOT about drainage issues and looking at water and sewer. I think my role is to say, how can I look at all issues that affect the county regionally? I also hear from people that have water and sewer issues, people who live in areas that is not as fluent and not as blessed as some of you all here, who still have failing septic systems. I think that sometimes we're focused on one or two issues, that we have to focus on all of those issues, and I hear from those people. I also hear from people in our beach areas who are concerned still about beach renourishment and those projects and how we're going to protect our coastlines. We know that a lot of incentives have been given there, but I'm also there and meeting with those folks as well. So staying engaged and meeting with people constantly. I'm in probably 5 to 7 or 10 meetings a week, meeting with an array of people and trying to build that trust and build that collaboration. I don't always promise, but what I do promise them that I'll follow up and I'm in collaboration with them. If they invite me to their churches, I'm always invited to speeches or their communities or wherever that is, I go. And so, and I don't just talk about water and sewer and those type of issues. I try to be proactive in looking at and contacting Commerce and contacting DEQ and other entities outside of this role and seeing what we can do to help build those collaborations. So being among the people and with the people and practicing the government for and by the people is what I try to do and what I try to live by. I also met with our sheriff office this week just to see what their needs are, met with our deputies and others and trying to see how we can support them outside the role. So I can only speak for myself. I think that I try to give as more time to this role that I possibly can do as I did the first time when I served, and to build that trust and collaboration. And then I think, and your second part of your question is a very good question. What will be our legacy as a board that we have to focus on? It's not going to be for me that I'm trying to degrade one of my colleagues even if I disagree with them. It's going to be for me that I take a professional standard that I've been taught for the last 20 years in academia, that I'm not going to certain levels. Even though that some may want to go there, I don't do that. But I will tell you that I will try to move this county forward to try to make sure we have water and sewer for the long term, make sure that we have land secured that we can build for jobs. So when your son goes all the way to college, he can come back here and choose and have a good paying job if he wants to do that. And to make sure that we not only are relying on our ad valorem taxes to fund new initiatives, but make sure that we are empowering our employees to apply for grants and other incentives that would be a cost savings to the county. Those are things that I want to be part of my legacy. Thank you.
So I don't have near as much time as Dr. Tate does. I get paid by the hour, so I have to be there, and I work 80-plus hours a week most weeks. But I do out in the community a lot, and I do answer my phone, and I do respond to emails, and I do a lot of social media posting. I spent 12 years on the school board prior to coming to this job, and I question myself quite often why I did that. But my initial reason was that being on the school board, I had an opportunity to see from the worst part of Pender County to the best part of Pender County. And I was able to go in those schools and see the kids that strive for attention and strive for need and have needs. And then I can go into school where you have helicopter parents that they're all over you, and that sometimes it's just so suffocating because they are too involved. So my thought, coming to this board is we can bring Pender County as a whole up to a higher standard. We can so maybe balance the playing field where everybody gets and I quickly learned that's not possible, especially as one person. But I still strive to do that. I have 3 children. My son is a firefighter and his wife is a teacher. And they cannot live in Pender County. They live less than a half a mile in Onslow County because they can't afford to live on the eastern side of Pender County where they want to live. I have a son that works in Parks and Recs, and he is engaged, or he's not engaged. He has a girlfriend that does billing. And then I have a daughter that's a teacher, and her husband is a police officer. So I have all my children are public servants. That's what they choose to do, and I'm proud of them. But I see that they're not going to be able to live in Pender County at the current rate we're going. So my goal was, and I get blamed for reevaluation all the time, and yes, I do. I did vote for reevaluation. I'll continue to support it because that levels the playing field. That takes some of the tax burdens off of the ones that's paying a lot of the taxes, and it helps some of the ones that are paying too much taxes. I want my family to be able to live here, and that was my goal, to be on the commissioner's board. There's times now I don't even want to live here. You think I'm joking? This is a very difficult job because you're not ever going to make everybody happy. I thought the school board was hard, and it is. The school board was parents. This is adults that act like children. But my goal is to bring Pender up to a better standard where we all have the same opportunities from Curry to Topsail Beach. And I hope that answers your question without too much.
You talking about trust? You talking about trust? I don't think I've lost trust. That's your opinion. So that's the number one answer. I did this to give people a choice. I didn't have to do this. I was fine financially the way I was after I retired from the county. I was fine. And I'll be fine from here on. I did this job to see where the money was going. And I am seeing where it's going. And I am the same person that I was elected. My friend George Brown sat here for 16 years, and he's still a friend of mine. So I gave people a choice, and I won, and I'm here. And it's so sad to see friends that have been friends for 50 years and longer fighting against one another. And the reason they're fighting because they don't have the facts. If they knew the facts, they wouldn't be fighting because they would be looking around hoping no one was looking at them doing what they're doing right now and say, God, why am I doing this? They don't know the facts. But some of the facts are here tonight is we fired the county manager. The assistant county manager left. We fired the county attorney. The clerk left. And to be honest with you, we probably don't need to be trying to do this merger because we don't have the manpower in the office to do it. I've said this all along. As soon as we fired the county manager, we don't have the manpower to do what we're doing. Think about it. Now, to go back to trust, I don't think I've lost trust. The trust that I've lost is because of all those satanic cartoons that y'all look at every week in the paper. And I yield at that.
Let me respond and say something here. Listen, I don't have the time, as I said this morning to someone, to take off. I do work I work 3 jobs. I still work as at a university. Somebody on this room tonight, I won't call him out, but he was on the phone with me last night to about 12:30 in the morning when I was submitting a grant for with Johns Hopkins University. What many people don't know, that I do a lot of contract work. Plus, I'm president of my own organization. Plus, I own Tate Farm by the pond. I have a lot of jobs. But when I became a commissioner, I decided that if I have to work to 2 o'clock in the morning or to 3 o'clock, just like I responded to some of your emails at 3 o'clock this morning, is that I'm going to take off the time and do the job that the people appointed me to do. So I do work.
Well, I did some, but didn't mean you didn't work. You do work.
But I don't want nobody to go out and misquote that. Now, I work very
He calls
hard.
me at 4 o'clock in the morning sometime on the way to work. I didn't mean it that way, I'm sorry.
Good evening. I know we all haven't been introducing ourselves, but I don't mind. My name's Joe Reckonu. I live in Maple Hill. I've been a member of the Maple Hill Volunteer Fire Department for 10 years. I'm the current secretary, and I understand what it's like to have a job that nobody appreciates, even though I don't get paid for it. I've been a resident of Pender County since 2007, so I've seen this thing come on, go off. I was here when Maple Hill decided to hire paid staffing to support our volunteers. It was the best decision we ever made. It was the best decision we've ever made for the county, for our people, for our community, and we've worked with nothing but the most professional firefighters that I think you could produce. I'd put them up against anybody. There's several I could mention by name. If you want to know, let me know later. I'll line them out for you. But we have a great relationship. Along that line, some of this is personalities and egos are driving the train here, and that's unfortunate. We're fighting each other instead of fighting the problem. If we have a problem and an issue, that's what we should attack. We're not attacking each other. That's not getting anywhere. There has not been a question asked tonight where there was an answer or anybody got what they wanted by coming in here. Maple Hill does not want to be involved in this merger. We want our current contract with Pender EMS and Fire to remain the same when it transitions to a county emergency services operation. The firefighters that come to Maple Hill every day simply show up with a different patch on their sleeve. Should be transparent to our community. I feel Chief Haraway's pain. I also feel the firefighters' pain as well. My son's a firefighter. Myself and both of my sons are volunteer firefighters. The issue of mistrust comes when I give everybody the benefit of the doubt until you lie. I see you lie or you lie to me. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt until that occurs. I'm going to gloss over this one because I don't want to beat it to death. But the Board of Commissioners made a vote to move forward on this merger based on you were told that all parties involved had signed a memorandum of understanding. Is that true?
We were told, I was told, yes. It's on the.
That was not true. In fact,
We were told that all members agreed to it.
that, however,
That's on recording.
that's not correct. That did not occur. Maple Hill did not agree to that memorandum of understanding because there's a lot of people in here and a lot of commissioners. Apparently, we have a lot of questions that we still wanted answered. So that was a lie or gross negligence. One of the two. You can respond to that later. The other issue I have is we're talking about maintaining volunteers, but the term qualified comes up. And a question we've asked several times is what exactly is that? What is a qualified volunteer? What are you calling that? If you give me some sort of, if this thing's going forward and I can't stop it, I can at least tell you how many volunteers you'll maintain in Maple Hill. You give me the qualifications, I'll tell you who the 22 I have on the roster, who meets them, And out of those 22, who's going to stick around? We're not going to maintain an ISO of 4 with 3 paid firemen on a truck. We will only maintain our ISO rating with our pump capacity and our water haul capacity, and that requires volunteers. So if there's not to be any change in service delivery, you need to know how many volunteers I can give you. I think that's a reasonable question. What are these qualifications going to be? Moving forward, I can tell you, are you going to change the service delivery in Maple Hill? Well, yes, if you lose all your volunteers. If you maintain enough to put 4 trucks on the road for a structure fire, then no, you won't change your service delivery. These are very basic questions that we haven't gotten an answer to yet. Another point I had was the plan of action and milestones it's rather ambitious, and I think we all can agree on that. The hard, firm, fast deadline, I understand that somewhere along the line you have to have a date. You have to have people come to something by some point. I would encourage the board to take a look at why that date is set in stone so hard, and why can't we just come to the timeline dictating itself. If it takes longer than 18 months, it takes longer than 18 months. But doing it right is what we owe all these guys over here in the back of the room, regardless of when that takes place. Maple Hill as a fire department, we're not against a merger. We want whatever's best for our firefighters and the pay and benefits that they probably should have had a long damn time ago. So one quick question, Chief Haraway, if you had a budget increase, could you provide the same pay, benefits, and retirement that the county can?
Yes. If they gave me the money, I could subsidize the health insurance just like the county does. I could take and I could have, maintained and found, alternatives for retirement benefits with the money and the increase in the budget. Yes, I could do a lot of the same things for my employees, but my budget has been pretty much status quo for the last 4.5 years. We haven't had a pay raise in 4.5 years because funding has not been allocated.
Right. So knowing that, personally, I would go back and look at both of the numbers. What would it cost me to give Pender EMS and Fire the finances required to give the same amount of pay and benefits that the county is offering? And which one is cheaper? Which one's more effective? Which one's more efficient? That's also a simple question. It's just a matter of numbers, but it doesn't seem like anybody knows that number. Also, we were talking about volunteer incentives. Different fire departments, we all know what an AHJ is. Those of us that are firefighters, the authority having jurisdiction is our fire chief in Maple Hill. We don't do pay-per-call. We don't get paid to be volunteers. We come out because we want to serve our community. I'm a 3rd-generation volunteer fireman. My boys are the 4th generation. We do it because it's the right thing to do. We don't come in here with fancy monogram shirts and polo shirts, and we don't have 501 tactical trousers and Belleville boots and personalized radio straps on the taxpayer's dime. You come look at our volunteer fire department, 2 of the commissioners have been there. It's not a shithole, but it's not very dang on fancy neither. But our trucks are the best, some of the best that are on the road in this county. We put the money where it's supposed to be. As far as volunteer incentives, what you're going to do to keep me a volunteer, there are none. I don't need any incentives. I just need the opportunity to serve my community. The heaviest line item expense in any organization is personnel pay. Does anybody debate that? Pay takes up somewhere, depending on where you work for, 60% or more of your budget is paying people. It's difficult for us to understand that the service that we provide as volunteers without pay can be the same replaced with people that are being paid. Financially, that doesn't quite add up. I know it's a little more complex than that, but you need to maintain the volunteer force in Maple Hill, and we're very different. We're very specific. Our life up there is very different than the other volunteer departments in the Pender County. That's pretty much all I got, other than we have we have come before the board several times, and we've talked to several commissioners, and that would be our only ask is, let's take a look at this thing. Maybe pump the brakes a little bit and see if the volunteer departments have to be absorbed right now. Can we leave the model that we have in Maple Hill that has been a model in the county? Can you leave us alone for a little bit? A couple of years maybe until we get everything smoothed out with this merger, and then look at absorbing us into the county emergency services plan. Volunteer firemen are going away. We're dwindling at a very rapid rate. We're aging out. I'm 52. I'm a retired sergeant major. I'm one of the younger dudes in the department. It won't be long. There won't be a choice. You will come take over Maple Hill. There won't be any volunteers left. Specifically Maple Hill. There's no neighborhoods. There's no large communities where young people are growing up and we're going to come take them into the department. That's not going to happen. Eventually, some of us are just going to get too old to do it anymore. We're going to drop below the 15-man requirement on the roster, and that's it. We'll go away. But let us do what we're doing in the time being. We've done a pretty damn good job. An ISO of 4 for a volunteer fire department ain't too shabby with a $138,000 budget. Nobody does what we do cheaper. I would ask you to take that into consideration. Thank you.
So in reference to the qualified volunteers, that is if they are providing search and rescue, if they're providing Swiftwater, if they're a fire volunteer, if they're an EMS volunteer, that they have the certifications or the required number of hours of training for whichever thing that they are providing that service. In terms of the MOU, when Chief Motley came to me, he asked that y'all wanted to be excluded, you wanted to talk to the board. I brought that to the board. Y'all talked at public comment. At that point, Chief Motley missed some of our meetings, and Mr. Green has sat in those meetings. And I understood from Mr. Green, after we talked about the local government retirement system and those things, he said he was going to go back and talk to y'all's board. And he seemed, the way that I interpreted how our conversation went was that Maple Hill was not completely opposed to everything. They understood there were positives and negatives, and he was going to go back and have those conversations with the board. And if my board misunderstood and thought that they had actually signed the MOU, I do apologize for that, because they have not signed it. But I was under the impression from the last 2 meetings I've had with Mr. Green that y'all's board was still discussing it.
Still discussing it, signing it, are two different things.
So I've actually had a couple of conversations with Chief Jones, and he knows where I stand. I stand fully in support of the volunteers in any community. There is no way, shape, or form any of us up here want to do away with people that are serving their communities on a volunteer basis. That's why we had the conversations and pumped the brakes on Rocky Point. They're doing a service, such as Maple Hill is doing a service to keep the ISO rating there. And I think that the chief of Rocky Point can back that up. They're saving the county taxpayers over $770,000 a year. As are you. Yes. And I'm totally in support of you remaining a volunteer organization, getting your $130,000, but having county employees assist you, just like EMS and fire is doing now. I don't have a problem with that.
That's all we've asked for.
Well, I for one, I'm one of 5. You said it great.
And I appreciate you going on record, Commissioner, with that, but that
absolutely.
is not the direction that the merger is taking. We are to be dissolved as it proceeds. That's why we have not signed the MOU.
Well, Ms. Fulton and Ms. Meg they've also gotten phone calls from me expressing my pleasure to talk to you and for Maple Hill to exist. Is that not correct?
Yes, we've recently had that conversation, and also our consultants are one has brought the concerns with the local government retirement system to us. We can certainly talk to our legal department about whether or not we can do that, but we were led to believe that with the local government retirement system, that there's a lot of complications when you have county staff, even though they're in the separate building, because y'all have the 2 buildings, that if they're seen as being part of Maple Hill Fire Department or reporting to volunteers, that it can jeopardize them being entered into the local government retirement system. But if the board chooses, we can certainly revisit that with legal.
It's
and
not our wish for
determine if that's
any,
okay.
any volunteer department to be dissolved. If they can maintain their roster and maintain their community service that they're doing. And I totally agree with you that one day you might say, hey, we just can't do it no more. And we've had that conversation, me and Mr. Jones did, a couple times. But yeah, I stand on that, and I've not wavered at all in full support of a community, especially like a unique community like Maple Hill, that you are like an island in the county. And yeah, well, I fully support that. I was a volunteer firefighter for years too, but that all went away one day too. So, yeah, I fully support that.
So if Maple Hill, what I'm hearing when you say, Chair Burton, so if Maple Hill wants to remain neutral out of this merger, we're going to allow that to happen, correct?
My understanding is their full-time employees right now are not Maple Hill volunteers.
Correct. Right.
They are fire and EMS, so they'll be Pender County firefighters and Pender County paramedics at some point. But their volunteer roster should still be able to be Maple Hill Volunteer Fire Department, just like Rocky Point Volunteer Fire Department. I don't see any difference there.
We just have a symbiotic relationship with Pender Fire and EMS, which would continue whatever badge they have on their sleeve.
Correct.
To maintain. Otherwise, I would have to ask the county, are you willing to spend another $600,000 to put those additional firefighters there to maintain that ISO 4? And I just don't think the county.
I totally
can do
agree.
that.
Yeah, regarding any specific legal nuances with retirement plans and the volunteers and paid firemen, they don't work for us. They don't work for us now. They work for Pender EMS and Fire. At the conclusion of this merger, they would simply have a different patch on their sleeve when they show up to Maple Hill. So I don't see the argument of potentially interrupting some possibility of their retirement plan being an issue.
Yeah, my point also. Yep. And I do want to sort of just throw my thoughts out there on a comment that was made earlier about some of the buildings being brought up to ADA code and the county having to spend this and that and the other. So, what I'm hearing is, right now, currently, employees are working in bad conditions, and we condone that. Employees are working in buildings that are not ADA compliant and have problems. I'd want some buildings to be up to snuff if my family member was working in them. And that's just where I'm at. I mean, so do we got some conditions or buildings or things out there that are not compliant? Yeah, that's just a comment on the buildings and things like that.
My comment was directed at that has not been budgeted in any line I've seen. Those expenditures have not been budgeted.
That's something definitely needs to be looked at, because we want every employee in the county to be treated the same and have all the professional standards that we can offer them in their employment.
So, Mr. Chair, at some point, can we expect a sit-down, or can we expect hey, you guys are going to continue to operate as you do now? We don't need to sit in merger meetings anymore?
I would think that Ms. Fulton and Ms. Blue can get with you after tonight.
Truthfully.
I hope so.
Let me jump in here just a minute. I want to give our staff credit, lots of credit for what they've done with what they've had to work with. And both of these to my right, they have worked their hearts out with this. And I really appreciate it. But I know they need more help. You could just look around the office. We have a whole back office that's empty, and it's just not normal. And I want to talk about the quality of service just a little bit that Pender Fire and EMS has been given. In my opinion, it's been as high a service as you can give. I've never heard a complaint. It's nothing to do with the service that they're giving. I know Everett works his heart out, and there's no question about that. This whole thing has been talked about for years and years, and I thought it would be a good time to try to give it a chance. it's sad that all the negativity came in to destroy it. And I told Brent Springer, Commissioner Springer, I told him exactly how this was going to end, and now it's ending the exact same way I told him. Because there was a few people that wanted it to end like this. And so it's ending with strife and bitterness. And it didn't have to be like this. But there again, Everett Basin has worked his heart out and gave us good service. And I don't think anyone can say different. This whole thing is to try to see where the money's going and try to control the money and to give the employees better benefits. And if I see where it's not going in that direction, then I'll pull my support whether it stops it or not. But that's why I wanted to give it a chance, just to help the employees, because a lot of them have called us. My phone is full of emails that want this. So why don't we just give it a chance? Think about it. Let's give it a chance.
I saw our HR director here. Did I see her? Miss Kim, I think she gave me those numbers last year. How many employees did we have to leave to the end of 2024? Miss Blue, did you give that to me? I think I have those numbers. How many?
We had over 100 employees leave at the end of 2024.
Yeah, over 100 employees left before I came on the board. Over 100 employees. And we've seen that in the last 3 years. Employees have left this county in a record number. So maybe we need to evaluate why has that happened. A lot of things changed in 3 years.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it is true that Pender County has had a lot of retention issues. I've seen it firsthand. I've done exit interviews, okay? It's also true that the extra excitement from the citizens and from the board and from management has also contributed to why employees are leaving. I in HR am not like most public servants. Most public servants go out there for the public. I am there for the employees. I am there specifically for the people. It's true that our retention has not been great, but in the month of September, we had 5 employees leave Pender County. 5. 1 retired, 2 left because they were terminated during their probationary terminations, and then 3 were the voluntary resignations. 5 total. We have 506 full-time employees at this time. And I know it's not great. The past numbers, they look awful, but we're working hard. The policy you guys have passed, the work HR has been doing, we have been working very hard to make sure our employees are taken care of and supported, and just overall just made sure that they really are heard in every way, shape, and form. I've been to more departments in the past year and talked to more employees than I have in my entire HR career. Okay? My promise to Fire and EMS is that I will give you the same respect and the same courtesy and the same genuine care that I give the current employees. Anybody in Pender County can walk in my office at any point in time, sit down in the couch behind me, and we can have a conversation about anything they want to talk about. The employees are doing what we are told to do, and we are trying to do this to the best of our ability, and we are trying to do what's right by every single employee. I personally pay $600 a month in health insurance for family care for Pender County. Your fire and EMS workers for family plan, they're paying $1,500 or $1,700 a month in health insurance with an average salary of $50,000 a year. So they're bringing home, before taxes and anything, $32,000. And these are the people that are showing up on your doorsteps at the worst time in your life, when you're going through a house fire or when your dad's on the ground passed out. These are those people that $5,000 that we're all fussing and complaining about, that is going towards the employees. That is going towards their retirement, towards the Orbit system, towards not a matching 401k, but a contribution to a 401k. So I appreciate all of the input from all of the taxpayers, more than you know. But I really want you to know that we really are trying to do what's best. Even if the turnover in the past has looked bad, even if there's been ups and downs throughout the county, we really are trying to do what's best for all of the employees.
Ms. Bennett, I want to touch on this. I think you and Ms. Brame do a good job. And what I would say is I'm glad you all work as hard as you do along with staff. I know you got an uphill battle with new employees coming on, and I would just thank you for that uphill battle that you're getting ready to have to endure.
You the chair. You the chair.
Ms. County Manager, we got any more questions?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. We're going to try to wrap this up, though. It's 9:25, so go ahead, sir.
All right, so we're hearing about all the ways that this merger can be beneficial. However, we still don't have how much taxes will increase. So if we could not cancel the merger, but just delay the deadline just a little, by a couple of months, maybe December 1st of next year, so that we have time to process through the budget and figure out exactly how much it'll cost each taxpayer, and then have more town hall meetings after that to discuss it with all the knowledge. And I was like to ask the board members, are y'all individually in support of that?
No, I'm not.
Not at this moment.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
We appreciate everybody coming out tonight. There's a couple more that we're going to have, I think, over in the Hampstead area. And Penderley has been rescheduled to the 15th up in Penderley at the Penderley School. So thank you, everyone.